Is the man Errol Muzawazi, and we have invited the young man to tell us about his adventures. Welcome to Good Morning Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you.
First of all, tell us what made you embark on this expedition, especially the latest one.
Well, basically, I'm writing a book about the experiences of a black man traveling on the black continent. So I wanted to go on the continent, meet the people, make interviews, participate in their daily lives in order to accumulate and gather a truly African experience. I was also searching for what I call an authentic African voice that is talking to Africans themselves to hear what are their views and opinions about Africa as opposed to what we hear on the international biased media.
So which country did you travel across?
I went across 17 African countries: Morocco, Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, Congo Brazzaville, Congo Kinshasa, Angola, Namibia, South Africa, and then Zimbabwe.
Awesome. So some of the unique discoveries across all those countries, what did you find that was so unique to Africa?
Well, you know, Africans are people who are very happy. They are people who take their time to achieve their tasks, and they are people who are very humble. That was one very good aspect I discovered about Africa after living in Europe for 7 years, where people are always in a hurry, people are never smiling, and everything is all about business and money. In Africa, it's about humanity and the ethos that makes us people. Is something that was great that I discovered across the continent. But most importantly, one thing that I discovered is that it is untrue that Africa is home to war, hunger, disease, and corruption. These are kinds of problems you find everywhere in the world, and it's unfortunate that the international media has portrayed Africa as home to these kinds of forces, which is actually not true according to my experiences across Africa.
And if I'm correct, that was also one of your mandates to portray Africa in a positive manner. Did you manage to do that?
It's not only my mandate, it is the mandate of every African.
Sure.
I managed to do that. I traveled across Africa. This is an achievement that used to be a reserve for white people. But I crossed the continent and I conquered all the barriers that were there. And I was writing, taking pictures and taking videos of my experiences, which will result in a documentary film in a book in 2 years' time.
But was it not tedious traveling across all these countries? What was your mode of transport?
Yeah, it's tiring. It's a challenge. I was traveling by car, a 1991 Nissan Patrol. It's an old, scruffy vehicle, but mechanically sound, which is all you need in Africa. Because if you ever got a new car, you might lose it. You know, people will think that you are one of those mafias. It was a challenge. The roads, some of these roads, you know, let me tell you the truth that no matter what problems we can face as Zimbabweans, we are still 100 years ahead of many African countries in terms of road infrastructure and these kinds of things. So I had a problem in terms of navigation across the continent, but you know, everything is possible.
But where does your adventurous spirit come from?
Well, you know, the adventurous spirit is something that is in the African. We have had such kinds of journeys, epic journeys, and those kinds of things. Even in our history books, as Africans, we've always been inquisitive on discovering new areas. You might want to know that we have the Great Zimbabwe, which, by the way, was not built by the Chinese. It was built by Africans. We have the Egyptian pyramids, which were built by Africans and not the Europeans. The Pythagoras theorem, which you know today, is an African theory. So these kinds of inquisitive instincts that we find actually African in origin.
And did you not probably find yourself in a little bit of, what were the challenges probably that you faced throughout your expedition?
Well, basically, the challenges that I faced were reception. Unfortunately, there is a tendency, which is something we must fight as Africans, as an internal evil, that we view the white man as a better human being than the black man. So people say, you know, you're traveling across Africa, where this is for white people. We also had a problem of visas. Of the 17 countries that I traveled, I needed to have visas to 14 of these countries, of which, if you actually look at it, you find that a German passport holder would need 9 of the visas where I needed 14, and an ordinary European passport holder would need almost half of the visas that I needed. And I think this is an issue that African governments have to look into as a matter of urgency, to abolish visas for Africans traveling in Africa.
Okay. And then we understand that you received an award for the best foreign student in Poland out of 17,000 international students. What can you attribute this to?
Well, I think that this is a true mark of the Zimbabwean education that we've all received. You know, Zimbabwe has got the best literacy rate in Africa, and I think that I just took that abroad. They awarded me for cultural diplomacy of trying to, bridge the gap between Europe and Africa and trying to make a dialogue between these two continents.
Okay. What university are you attending?
I am at the Jagiellonian University in Poland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what discipline are you undertaking?
For my master's, I was doing international law. I was writing on the reform of the UN Security Council. And now I'm going to embark on a doctoral program.
Okay. And then also, you are in the Guinness Book of Records for, the longest lecture, 121 hours. Is that crazy, or is that crazy?
No, it's absolutely normal. When you see your professors lecturing for 1 hour or 2 hours, is it crazy? It's not crazy. The only difference is that I had more to say.
Well, you can say there, but then this is 121 hours. Were there any breaks in between?
Yeah. You get a 5-minute break every 1 hour. Mm-hmm. You can choose to go for 4 hours and accumulate your breaks into 20 minutes.
What did you have to say anyway?
Well, I was talking about the youth of Africa not being the future but the present. There's a tendency here in Africa to designate African youth to start participating in the community development at some point in the future. And I said, no, we are not the future, we're the present, and we want to be empowered and to participate now, today.
Yeah, and we'll when is the future coming? But,
That's
being the present. All right, so anyway, tell us about what's going to happen next now after this.
Well, in 2012, I'm planning to embark on a much bigger and larger expedition that I would like to share as it goes with the African people. This time around, this expedition was just a fact finder, a pathbreaker, but I believe that my experiences are very, very critical, and I would like to share them with the African peoples so that we can use some of these experiences to change the continent.
Mm-hmm. And are you Zimbabwe's tourism ambassador of some sort?
That one I will leave it to the Zimbabwean Tourism Authority to tell you about.
But you definitely have done something to put Zimbabwe on the map, and,
yes.
and the best people to be ambassadors for Zimbabwe, I always say, are Zimbabwean.
Yes, certainly, whether I'm officially or unofficially, I will always be an ambassador for Zimbabwe.
And is there a launch happening regarding your works and your travels?
I think that, it would be appropriate at some point to celebrate these kinds of achievements, and we are underway in these kinds of preparations for at least to eat and drink over this.
But then, before you go, just tell me something that is so unique about Africans.
Yeah.
Something good, though.
Something good about Africans, as I already told you, we as Africans, we are people who are happy, we are people who smile a lot. And this is something very, very important. You travel, you walk on the street in Europe, really you find people smiling. People are always in a rush, in a mess, looking at their time, etc. They say that, they even developed a proverb that the European has got the clock, the watch, but the African has got the time. So I think this is something that is very positive about Africa, although obviously we must do something to make sure that we always do our things on time.
So when do you expect to see the documentary?
Well, in 2 years' time, it will be launched at the same time as my book that I'm writing, an account of the travels of a black man traveling across Africa.
Okay.
Yes.
I will do look forward to that. Thank you so much for coming to Good Morning Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much for hosting
We
me.
wish you all the best. I was the
Okay.
first black man to travel across Africa by land from Morocco to Cape Town, and also the Guinness Book of Records record holder for the longest lecture, which lasted 121 hours, and he is Zimbabwean. That was Errol Muzawazi. Good Morning Zimbabwe takes a break. Do join us in a moment for more.